Mike. How you doing?
Gentlemen, how we doing?
Great. I
Good.
love everything I'm seeing behind you. So it's
I know. I
fantastic.
love the
Well,
Ghost
yeah.
Face. I love the whole movie collection.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Excellent. Yes. Yeah. Well, you know what? I think I can officially call you guys friends of the show now. We spoke about a year ago, I believe. So this
Yeah.
is great to be talking to you once again. Not only congratulations on the success of the film, but I wanted to thank you for film nerds everywhere.
Yeah.
You give us hope that one day we might get a film professor that looks like Samara Weaving. So Guy, let's start with you because I want to talk about the tropes within this as well. Because Samar's character, Laura, actually says within the genre, it's trope after trope, but within that structure, there is room to give voice to the voiceless. And we kind of talked a bit about that with Scream 5. So, who were the voiceless that you wanted to give a voice to, I think, with this film?
That's a really good question. I think our core four characters, have gone through something really traumatic, and I think they're dealing with it in different ways. And I feel like this movie kind of explores what those different ways might look like. We have Samantha, who is in her sister's mind, living in the past, dwelling on the trauma and what happened, and trying to figure it out. In her mind, she's being proactive. Like I know this, is it's taking a long time to process and it's really difficult. So I'm trying to, do the right thing. And then you have Tara, who's like, I don't want that to define me. And I just want to move on with my life. And I just want to be a regular college kid. And they both want the other one to be more like them and do it that way so they can feel better about their own path. And then you have Chad and Mindy doing the same, kind of going through the same journey. And so I think in a way, it's about survivors and, what that process might look like, what that journey might look like as you move on from that. And then you obviously in real life you hit obstacles. Hopefully not like a literal ghost face try to kill you again, but just as you're trying to recover and move on, this horrible thing happens all over again.
Well, James, I'm going to ask you because you're obviously on the production side of things as well, that you were put into a very interesting situation. I mean, you had the requel and now a sequel to a requel with this film because of a myriad of factors. No Sydney, but at the same time, you also, I mean, struck gold with Jenna Ortega in terms of, the timing of having her in the first one and now in this one. So, in a sense, you guys as the writers and as a production have three final girls to talk about, to give time to and development to. So, knowing that this was the situation, how did you possibly balance giving all three of them the necessary time?
I mean, I think part of it, that's the real exciting part of it too, is having such a deep bench of talent. And credit to Rich D'Elia, who's our casting director on this and on Five, who helped find Melissa and Jenna and just made sure that we are always casting great actors for these parts, even the smallest ones. And so it's the if you build it they will come a little bit, is if you cast great actors and give them hopefully good material, they'll be able to do things. And I think Scream has always been an ensemble piece at the core of it. Is they're always sort of built to have multiple people who each sort of have moments to shine. So I know that Guy and I were very, very excited about telling not only the story of these two sisters coming together with Melissa and Jenna, but also the story of sort of how Melissa and Sam and Gail kind of come to a common ground between two generations of Gail sort of giving her advice on how to deal with what's going on and them kind of becoming closer. So it was really, really just sort of that's the thrill of it, I think, is being able to try and balance that stuff.
Yeah, and you know what? I have to give credit, of course, to Courtney as well. You guys had four final girls in some respect as well.
Mm-hmm.
We had talked ad nauseum about Scream 2. It's one of our favorites, I think. And I love the fact that you were kind of unapologetically like, hey, this is our Scream 2. You had Mindy pretty much even say it. What were some of the tidbits? Because I know how much you guys are fans, and I know, all the little secrets that you wrote into the script for Scream last year. I heard the Dewey theme for about 3 seconds. Once again, I figured, oh, they must have written that in. What were some of the other, must-haves for this one as a tribute to Scream 2?
it's funny because we actually we were steering away from it in certain
A
instances
little bit,
because we
yeah.
did
Both,
we
yeah, in and
yeah, it
away.
was like we would do the nods, and then in some cases we were a little concerned. We are like, well, we don't want to look like we're copy pasting from the Scream 2 script because we are such fans, and it would be a really easy trap to fall into. And so, for example, like when we originally the shrine that the killer had was meant to be a warehouse. And a location that was found by the guys, the RadioSilence guys, and the locations manager was this theater. And Jamie and I went up to Montreal where we shot the movie before the shooting began and looked at some of these locations, and we were a little bit nervous about setting the climax in a theater because of two. And
Yep.
then when we walked the stage and we kind of looked out at the auditorium, we were like, no, this has a completely different feel. I
Yeah.
think we're going to be okay, and it does work as an homage if you get it, but it's not something that would probably occur to you right away. And there were lots of little other things. Obviously, the college thing, that is a repeat of two in some ways. But we were conscious of like we're not making a college movie; we're making a New York movie,
Yeah.
and so there's not a ton of stuff on the campus. And the New York element was what really got us excited more than the college idea.
We had talked about some of the creative kills because we had talked about the hand sanitizer. And and James, you had talked about the fact that you saw that at a party and you go,
Yep.
that'd be a really interesting way to kill somebody. So knowing that you've got this playground called New York now, where did you go? I mean, I can imagine the ladder sequence is certainly one that you can't do in Woodsboro necessarily,
Yep.
but what were even some ideas that you guys had that you threw out?
Well, I mean, just not that we threw out, but just the ladder to talk about it. I grew up outside of about 45 minutes outside of New York City. My father commuted every, so I spent a lot of time in the city growing up. And Guy, it's his favorite city in the world, and loves it and goes and visits all the time. So, but for me, whenever I'm in New York, like in a tall building, there's always a part of me that goes, if I see a ledge I'm like, I wonder if I could make it. I wonder if I had to go, if I could hold it. Like that just part of it. So once we got to the idea, it was like, we got to send them out a window at some point. Like there has to be some kind of, we talked about verticality that we had never seen before in these. And then the subway was another one where it was just like, it's such a classic thing to do in New York City. How can we use this sort of to our advantage? There was, I think, the one thing that we ended up cutting from the script was budgetary. There was a sequence in a taxi cab. That was, we had to, just because shooting a moving taxi cab being attacked by a ghost face was just, it was going to be proved too tricky and expensive. So that's one that we talked about but left. But yeah, just sort of wanting to use the city in new ways, I think was exciting to us.
Yeah, otherwise I think pretty much the ones we came up with made the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we didn't have time to change stuff.
Exactly. Well, yeah, that's true too. But yeah, Subway, Central Park, Bodega, Great Height. Those are the ones we kind of landed on first, and restaurants, in the opening sequence. And yeah, it was just so exciting to just go, okay, what haven't we seen before in this franchise, and can we pull this off?
I got to ask real quick because I'm running out of time, but the original trilogy was about the effect of movie violence on life. It was very topical in the late 90s and early aughts. You guys have really set up, if you get a chance, knock on wood, to finish your trilogy, an aspect about the toxic effects of the internet. So any ideas brewing about what a third part might be and that subtext continuing?
Well, I don't know if we can talk about anything other than Scream 6 today, but what I will say is I think that we are always very cognizant of Scream movies are always sort of, I feel like sometimes you're trying to make movies that feel timeless. Scream movies always, I think the best ones feel rooted in the time they're made and are in conversation what's going on in pop culture and culture. And one of the things that I think is different now than it was then is the effect of, the internet on our lives and on our, for good or for ill. So, there are a lot of cultural things that Scream, and Scream has always been about those things too. Way back when Kevin and Wes were doing them, Kevin was always sort of, talking about, they talk about O.J. Simpson in Scream too. Like it's all about the trial, right? So I think there's a long, wonderful tradition of that that we're glad we were able to continue in 6.
Well, fingers crossed that you do get an opportunity, and fingers crossed that once again we can chat. And I hope we get an opportunity in another year or so. Okay.
It's a pleasure.
All right, gentlemen. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks. Nice to see you again.
Bye, Mike.
Hey Real students, thanks for watching. If you want to subscribe to Real School, click that round Real School logo right beside me. Also click that damn notification bell so you're aware of all of Real School's new content. You can follow me on Twitter, and of course, if you get anything out of Real School, you can always give a little back. Just click the link in the description below or the button down there, and you can become part of my Patreon team.